for today's practice, just have handy whatever you're going to be needing for the reclined bound angle pose. So having a bolster that can support you behind your back, having at least a couple of blankets to support as we bring the soles of the feet together to support the thighs on each side, something to put under your head, and then something to cover. So I have everything kind of stacked in there. This is how we'll end the session. And so throughout the practice, they can be set aside. I'm going to start at the back of the mat in wide knee child's pose. And we'll bring in some twist and movement into it. And if you feel like starting really slow and not include movement in this part of the practice, then you could also use your bolster here and come to a restorative child's pose with that support. The theme of the practice is to honor the new moon cycle that we are in. So I'm going to share my version of a moon salutation. And the moon time, the moving of the moon, the waxing and waning of the moon is always such a potent reminder of the cyclical nature of all of life. I've been really bringing that as a center of focus in a lot of my own way of living. And what I want to share today, bring snippets in as we practice, is a manifesto, a cyclical manifesto that my teacher and mentor, Ruby May, has written. And so I think it really aligns well with what I'm also trying to do with these slow morning sessions. All right, so let's come into the child's pose, either using your bolster or just coming in, letting the forehead rest on the ground, settling the forearms down, and coming into that place of yin, of dropping, descending, a place of softening and allowing, receiving the support from the ground. And for me, it's also a place of trusting. So let the breathing settle into its natural rhythm. Let ourselves pause. Center yourself in the most gentlest of way, in the most delicious way. And then if you're doing the restorative version, let yourself stay as you are. Otherwise, press the left hand down onto the ground and then take and thread the right hand under so that you can come into a twist, letting the right side of your head come onto the mat, onto the ground, and the left hand can find its place either in front or wrapped around your back. And keep giving the body weight to the ground, softening through the jaw. Slow and steady. I claim my right to thrive in this world and the need to create new systems and structures that honor the cyclical blueprint of life. And then if you are in the twist, slide your left hand in front of your face so you can press it down onto the ground. Come to all fours, so lift your knees, bring them closer, and beginning to circle with that same arm, right hand that was thread under. So I'm going to let the hips lean back, the arm circles back, and as I come back to all fours, the arm reaches forward. Feeling into the range of movement that is available in your shoulder, keeping it soft, fluid. And then next time when that right arm is reaching forward, let it come onto the mat. Take the left hand sideways. Keep the hips on top of the knees as you let the forehead either come onto the forearm or to come onto the ground. I'm going to let my right elbow, forearm drop onto the ground so I keep it soft and surrendered through the bones. So there's a little pulling through the right shoulder, maybe through the right waistline. I feel the breath coming and touching the side ribs, soft, curious, playful. The heart softening, the front part of the body surrendering towards the ground. And then it's as if my sit bones are magnetized towards the heels. I'm going to let that movement of hips moving back, buttocks moving back, drag me back towards the child's pose. I press the hands onto the ground so that I can widen the knees again. And taking the opposite side, so the left hand going under, left ear coming down onto the ground, and then letting the right hand find its place. So again, in Yin Wei, the hips get heavier. I just encourage the muscles around the thighs and hips to soften, however much is available. Softening through the palms of the hands. So I'm not reaching after anything, not pushing anything away. I claim my right to live in dignity, attuned to the cyclical wisdom of my body. And then the right hand can again settle somewhere in front of the face as it presses down onto the ground. I bring the knees again closer, walk the hands forward, and then there's the circling through the left side, left arm. And then on the next circle, I'm going to settle the left palm onto the ground, keeping the hips on top of the knees, and coming into this variation of a Anahata asana, one side more emphasized, one shoulder, rib cage on the left side. And again, slowly I'm gonna let the buttocks move back towards the heels. And for a moment, letting both arms travel towards the back of the mat so the palms turn up. I let the elbows soften and drop onto the ground so the upper back broadens and widens. And just a couple of breaths here. If you've been in the restorative child's pose, then you could also slowly begin to transition. And then slowly I'll move to all fours. You could take a couple of cat and cows here, preparing to transition to a dangling position, which means that I'm going to at one point tuck the toes under, bring my hands closer to the knees so that I can press my hips up towards the ceiling, find steady ground under both feet, but then keeping my knees really, really bent so that I can really let the spine pour down. So again, that watery quality associated with the moon. And I let the head be heavy, dropping down. So again, just intuitive movement here. I want to wiggle a bit. Shake a bit. Just find your own way that feels, again, soft, intuitive. And then I'll slowly start to press the feet down onto the ground. Knees are really bent as I start to roll the spine up slowly, vertebra by vertebra. And as you come up to standing, maybe there's again some circling, some movement that kind of wants to ripple through the spine as you feel into this upright position. And then finding a stance where the knees are slightly soft. I'm going to just walk a little bit away from my shelf here so I have space to move my hands around. The knees are going to soften, pause for a moment. We'll move through a kidney qigong of backbends and forward folds, a little tapping of the kidneys on the back. But first, again, just this beginning stance where you land in your bones. You feel the kind of the earthiness of your bones, the structure that is there to support, so that there can be softness at the same time as you feel into your strength and stability here. Settle into your breathing rhythm. And we'll go through several rounds, so if you haven't done this before, you'll catch up and eventually start to move more and more at your own pace. I'm going to start the movement with an inhale, and it's a leaning back, and it's almost like, there's the strings attached to my wrists as the arms leans back and then up. When I exhale, I start to pour the whole body down, so there's a curling and rolling down towards the ground. On my inhale, the hands are going to stroke the backs of the legs. They're going to stroke up towards the lower back, the kidney area. When you're ready to exhale, it's going to be a combination of so blowing that breath out through the nose and then the gentle knock of the fists into the kidneys, gentle. And then rubbing the kidneys, kind of like circling your fists into this area, so it would be underneath your lower ribs while leaning back. That's an inhale. And then as you exhale, stroking the backs of the legs as you roll back into the forward fold. You're going to switch your hands to the inner seam of your legs. This is your kidney energy line. So stroking it across the groin, and then hands on the exhale, circling in the belly, this energy center here, lower dantian. And then give it a moment here, breath in, a breath out when the hands are on the abdomen. And so several rounds like this. Inhale, leaning back, and exhale, folding forward. Inhale, stroking the backs of the legs. That's the urinary bladder line. That is the partner of the kidney. And then exhaling. Inhaling, little massage. Exhaling, folding in again the stroke of the back of the legs. Inhale through the inner thighs, curling up. Exhale, the hands circle, lower abdomen. Taking a breath in where the hands settle in the lower belly, and taking a breath out here. And now more and more with your own breathing rhythm. So back bend, there's a forward fold. Stroking of the back line while curling the spine up. And a little clearing breath. Massaging as you lean back, inhale. Folding forward as you exhale. Inner thighs. And then again an exhale, hands circling, gathering of chi. Breath in, breath out. And we'll go 2 more rounds where I really encourage you to now move with your own pace, your own sensitivity. And I'm going 1 more round. You might be somewhere else. So it's just, again, move at your own pace. There's no rush. And then at one point you are arriving at the top of the mat. So I'll pause here for a moment. Take your time to catch up, or if you're already here, use this time as a moment of, again, a standing meditation where the hands are connected to the lower abdomen. In this way, energetically connecting to an energy center, an energy reservoir, lower dantian corresponding to the physical body. And simply feeling your own bodily structure, your balance. And then coming to the front of the mat, coming to our moon salutations. Often in moon salutations, we're going to be circling on the mat. So we'll start in one direction. We're going to end up facing towards the back of the mat. So kind of be ready for that. We're going to start simply again, just standing, softening into the knees, taking a couple of breaths here. And then on the inhale, when your arms go up, bring the hands together, interlock the fingers, take your little pinky up towards the skies, ground and root both feet, and then lean over to your left as you press your right foot more onto the ground, and you can let the hips lean a little bit more over to the right. Take a breath in this crescent moon shape. Take a breath out. And then come to the center and lean over to the opposite side. So letting the hips lean over to the left as you move the hands over to the right. A breath into that side body. A breath out. And then as you come back to the center, as you release the hands, let your knees soften. Let yourself pour down. Soft, 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 knees soft. In the forward fold, again, consider just a little bit of swaying from side to side. So once more, tapping into that watery quality. And at one point, let the right leg step to the back of the mat. Let the back knee come down onto the ground and walk your left foot a little bit out towards the left. We take the right hand kind of under the shoulder on the right side of the mat. Reach across over to the right with the left. So there's like this diagonal stretch through the left sideline. Then on your inhale, start to bring that left hand up towards the ceiling and circle yourself open, chest open, arm leans towards the back. Then the arm swoops parallel to the ground over to diagonally over to the right. And then it starts to circle like this. So arc from up, parallel to the back. Find your own rhythm with it, and the breath will adjust to it. Your hips can begin to kind of move with it a little bit, sometimes leaning into the ground, sometimes pressing away from the ground. So there's like this rhythm, tidal rhythm of the body that you're following. Soft, watery movements, fluid. And then at one point, that left hand is going to settle inside the left foot and we'll pause in a dragon shape. So I'm going to find a still point. Maybe it is the hands down. Maybe you're bringing your forearms onto blocks or forearms down onto the ground. Maybe that left knee drops a little bit out to the side. Little explorative movements could still continue, pausing in our yin shape and giving that body weight to the ground. Softness of breath. I commit to stop normalizing going against my body through pushing and numbing and exhaustion and burnout this creates. So finding that edge in your practice where you're not pushing, you're not forcing. Finding that softness. And then walk back, palms down if you had walked a little bit deeper, so that you can start to lift that right hip a little bit away from the ground. The left foot can walk a bit more towards the center. I'm going to tuck the back toes under, lift the back knee up, and then there's that walking over towards the center. So I'm pivoting on the left foot, coming between the two legs, and then a little hip gliding from side to side, which means that I bend into one knee, and then the other knee. Option is that your hips kind of move down and up and down, or you could keep the hips gliding, so you gradually move from one side to the other. The arms could stay on the ground, or you could also experiment letting the arms float as well. So again, it's very intuitive. Choose what's soft. Choose what feels kind of nice and pleasurable. And then I'm going to pause when I reach the leg that is towards the back of the mat, so the right leg. And I'm going to let that hip sink in. I'm going to ground the left foot down onto the mat. This is one variation. If it works for you, you could kind of swing that right heel a little bit in and start to pivot on the left heel, so the left toes lift and point up towards the ceiling. So you're sitting your right hip towards the right heel. This is not going to work for everyone, so making sure that that right knee is happy with what you've chosen. I'll give it another breath here. And then we'll transition facing over that right leg, so towards the back of the mat. And then stepping that right leg back, either downward facing dog and some movement there, or you could be on all fours if downward facing dog feels a little bit too dynamic. I'm just giving it a couple of breaths. And then settling the knees onto the ground. And this time both arms walk forward as the hips stay on top of the knees. Letting the forehead settle onto the ground, forearms down onto the ground. So once more, in this heart-melting pose, the palms soften, the belly softens towards the ground. There's again a sense of release, a sense of downward movement. And then come to feel that your forearms are kind of securely on the ground. If you need to, inch them a little bit closer so that you can start to bring your hips forward so that the thighs can come down, the pelvis can come down, the belly can come down, the whole front line coming and meeting the ground. And I'm going to slide the hands off the mat to the side, so fingertips like spider hands on the ground. So we'll do a wavy spine movement. I'm going to let the kind of like the back of the heart lead the movement up into a back bend. And then the front body softens down, head last as you exhale. You can play with how wide your legs are. You can take them a bit wider. You don't have to come very high at all. You could stay quite close to the ground and wave from there. And then it doesn't have to be strictly up and down. So you could lean and circle a little bit over to the right, to the left. So again, kind of finding the spirals, the curls that are so common and natural in nature. Nothing is straight up, nothing grows straight up, everything grows in a spiral. Find those spirals in your body if that feels interesting to you. And then at one point, settling, starting to press back to all fours. And then either child's pose, down dog, all fours. You could again widen the knees or keep the knees together. Just a little pause before we go over the opposite side. Couple of breaths. And then either from downward facing dog or from all fours, bring the right foot to the right side of the mat. Bring the left hand steadied on the ground. The right hand now comes across diagonally up to the ceiling and then swoops parallel to the ground. And then it becomes this circular movement. A circular movement of opening and closing towards the ground, away from the ground, this pulse, this rhythm. And the next time when the hand is on the inside, I'll find a still point that I can hold for about a minute where I can let the hips drop. So find the depth that works. Settle in, and even though there's a certain sense of intensity that can be present in the dragon poses, then see, can you find that it's possible to also have softness present at the same time? So redefining strength to include softness, sensitivity, and compassion. That's also part of the Cyclical Manifesto, redefining strength to include softness, sensitivity, and compassion. And then I'll begin to transition again. So walking the hands up, walking the right foot a little bit more towards the center, tucking the back toes under, lifting the knee up, and then coming and walking halfway over, positioning the feet so toes facing forward, that the toes are in same line, and then once more we'll be gliding from side to side. In your own way. Slower, faster, arms on the ground, arms waving. Just the right amount of intensity matched with softness, with curiosity and playfulness. And then pausing once you reach over to the left side and choosing a variation that works for you. So keep leaning in here, any amount. Or pivoting the toes of the right foot up as you sit your hip deeper. And then once more, I'm going to swing myself over now back towards the top of the mat, back with left foot forward. And once more, stepping back to downward facing dog. Settling the knees down. If you want to take longer in the dog pose, you could. As we'll bringing the arms forward into the heart melting pose, Anahata Asana. Pausing again. I commit to upholding and embodying the global shift that's called for. It is transforming how we see intelligence as including the body, including intuition, including emotions. And then again, find your forearms on the ground. Start to shift your body weight forward so you come back onto the belly. And then walking your forearms forward, this time we'll take a yin sphinx. So we'll stay in a back bend that's passive, where we'll pause for a little bit longer. So find an arm position, either forearms parallel, or you want to bring the palms together. See again the distance of the elbows, forward, under the shoulders, or slightly forward. Any variations that you like to move into from here, bending the knees or straightening the arms. We'll settle for a couple of minutes. So passive in a sense that I'm going to relax as much as possible to the muscles, through the muscle tone. I feel the bones heavy. valuing our birthright of being as much as doing, resting without guilt, and remembering our birthright of play. And then let us slowly take the whole body back down onto the ground. Stay for a moment, then the rebound on the belly. Just let everything drop. And then either stay a little bit longer on the belly or move to child's pose or bring in some movement on all fours. And then if you are still on the belly, start to bring yourself back. Again, maybe join us in child's pose for a couple of breaths. And then curling up to sitting on the heels. And you are ready to set up your restorative pose. So I'll go through the variation here that I like with quite a lot of support. If you don't have quite as much, just make sure that you feel comfortable. And if there's maybe another restorative shape that you prefer, then please do that. The whole idea here is to actually spend the last portion of the session in doing nothing. So I set up my bolster on top of the blocks. That's the way I like it, a little bit of a slant for the support, and I place a blanket under my head. There's ways that you can roll the ends of the blanket under, so when your head comes down, rolling the edges of the blanket under, that creates a nice cocoon for the head. That's why I like a blanket rather than a pillow, but this could be a pillow as well. And then as you sit in front, taking the soles of the feet together, we want the thighs supported. So once more, it could be with rolled up blankets, it could be some pillows that you can then place underneath your thighs. And then a blanket that covers you, and an eye pillow that goes on the eyes. I'll also show the wrapping that I like for the arms. If that's not something you're into, you could also lie on your back and have the hands come out to the sides or support under the forearms. If you want to learn the burrito wrap, which is what my teacher calls it, it is my hands are going to eventually kind of rest on the belly with the elbows dropping down to the sides, and the blanket is going to be used to kind of create these slings, so I don't have to hold my arms, they can rest into a support. And the way I do it is I take the blanket, I take it over, and see how I'm drawing the end of the blanket in towards my chest. I do that on both sides so that my arm can rest into that sling. Okay? You need to put your eye pillow on first before you do the slings. So I'm going to settle in with you. I'm going to guide you for a bit, and then I'm going to leave you in silence. We have quite a spacious time here. So for the ending, I'm going to give you just a little chime, like a little bell ring, so that you could also ignore that and continue if you feel that you have the time for that. And so the eye pillows, wrappings of the arms, a final kind of like a scan through the body to see if there's anywhere else that you could use some support. A weight across the belly for the future times, maybe a hot water bottle in the winter time, or when you're on your moon days in this shape can feel divine. And so coming to find a constellation of support in such a way that you feel that the body has no choice but to drop. So it's not about holding yourself still. It's almost like this feels so good, there's no desire to move. And so in this new moon time, we again come to honor the darkness and the power and wisdom in it, the necessity of descent, honoring this part of the cycle. And so I claim the need for descent, the power and grace of surrender that allows us to meet life in fullness and depth rather than skim the surface. And so let yourself meet the earth, meet the ground by connecting to the back line of the body as it meets the surfaces underneath it, the support underneath it. So simple awareness of the contact points to the ground, to the surfaces underneath you. Feel as if there's this relationship of the ground welcoming and then your body's willingness to drop. Imagine like with every inhale, the ground kind of opens and softens. The support underneath you really invites you more deeply into its embrace. And with every exhale, there's just a tiny bit more willingness in the creature of the body to let go and to trust and to drop. The breath is moving naturally. There's a sense of receiving this gentle flow, unrushed. You can follow its movements as it touches the inner surfaces. And feel its softening, nourishing qualities spread into every cell of the body. Let go of trying to make anything happen, and at the same time trust whatever images or intuitions arise as we allow ourselves to drop below the surface. Allowing yourself to dream and vision, if that naturally arises, this new moon time of planting seeds. Don't force anything. Just this natural, open, soft space of receptivity. Simply receiving. Simply receiving. Trusting the descent, trusting the surrender, trusting darkness. part of the cyclical wisdom is that death, decay, is as much a beginning as an ending. And so I'm gonna thank you for practicing here. So if you sense that you want to stay longer, then stay longer. And if you know that you just had this hour for your practice, then I also let you to make this transition on your own. Make it gradual. Take a little sit in the end. Thank you so much.